Hello and welcome back to episode 9 of the Mindful Melbourne Maker podcast. My name is Kath and I'm a knitter, crocheter, knitwear designer and all-around maker living in Melbourne in Victoria. This is my YouTube channel where I share all about my making and hope that you enjoy what I'm going to show you today. You can find me on Instagram as Mindful Melbourne Maker and on Ravelry as Kath S. Martin, and you can find my patterns, knitting patterns, on Ravelry under Kath Martin Designs. And you'll also find the details for everything that I talk about today down in the description box below, so just click on more and all the links to the patterns and the yarn and the bags and other things that I talk about will all be down below as well. And feel free to like, comment and subscribe. So I really enjoy the interaction and engagement with everyone, and I really enjoy reading and replying to everybody's comments. So yeah, it costs you nothing, but it spreads joy in the world to just throw a little like my way, so thank you very much. So what have I been doing over the last couple of weeks? Well, absolutely everyone in my house has been sick. First it was my daughter, and she was sick for more than a week. Then my son got it, and then my husband's been sick. I am apparently immune, so I can take care of everybody, which is great. But it has meant not quite as much knitting time as I would have liked, but that's all right. Before we jump into all the knitting, just a reminder that I'm running the Aussie Sock Along, so it's a knit-along for knitting socks, and it's celebrating Australian sock designers, knitwear designers. So you can enter on Ravelry using the hashtag Aussie Sock Along, which I'll put here. And you can also enter in the Ravelry group for this podcast. So if you click into the Ravelry group, there's a thread there for the Aussie Sock Along, and you can post your finished objects, but you can also post your works in progress and just chat. Any kind of chat or entry is considered an entry, and it's just to get everyone engaged and to really enjoy knitting socks and finding new Australian sock pattern designers. There's a link in the Ravelry group to a bundle that I've created with Australian sock designers as well, and I keep adding to that as well, so that's there if you need some ideas or inspiration. Otherwise, jump in, whips are allowed, any size, any weight sock, whatever. There's no hard and fast rules, just as long as the pattern is by an Australian designer. So there's been heaps of people entering into the sock along, and you know, I'm seeing all the things pop up on my Instagram feed, which is so fun. So I was wondering, we were having it, I was going to run it until the 31st of August. And we've got lots and lots of prizes that have been donated for the knit-along, which is really great. So I was thinking I'll like hand out some prizes and do some random pickers and hand out prizes at the 31st of August. But if you wanted the knit-along to run for longer, so you're still really into knitting socks, you're still finding new Australian sock designers, let me know, because I'm more than happy to extend it out if everyone's having fun and you want the fun to continue. Otherwise we can do more knit-alongs in the future. But let me know in the comments what you think, if you want it to continue or you're ready to see who's won on the 31st, just let me know. So I don't have anything on the couch behind me today, but what am I wearing? I'm wearing my DRK Everyday Sweater by Andrea Mowry. So this is a really great pattern. It was pretty quick and straightforward to knit. I knit it in, it calls for a sport weight yarn, and so I tried to sort of stick to that, and when I was buying it I didn't sort of know too many places in Australia to get sport weight yarn. I've since found lots, but at the time what I actually got was Rauma Finull from Little Woollie Make. So this is a really it's one of those good colourwork yarns. It's quite rustic and a bit sticky, and it's in the colour 497, so it's kind of quite a port wine maroon colour, but I wanted to make it a little bit interesting. So what I did was I actually held for the collar and the cuffs and also the bottom band, which I'll show you in a sec. I held the Rauma Finull together with some silk mohair, and it's Manos del Uruguay Cabrito in the colour Ocelot, and I really like how those colours sort of work together. So that's the cuff, and you'll see the colours there, how it sort of marls in the ribbing. And then yeah, I did the same here, and if I stand up awkwardly I'll show you the bottom, so you can see that's the ribbing at the bottom. It's quite a chunky ribbing. It's quite a chunky ribbing, but held with the mohair, I think it just kind of lifts the colour, lifts the sweater. So it is a bit, it's not super soft, it's not merino, so sometimes I hesitate to pop it on because when I pick it up it just feels a bit scratchy, but actually when it's on it's not scratchy at all, so it's really nice. And we are coming towards the end of winter in Australia and in Melbourne now, and the days, we've had a couple of warmer days, top of 18 I think in the last couple of days, so I'm very sad because that means that the really cold weather is probably coming to an end, which is my favourite, but it does mean that jumpers like this, you know, this is my last chance to wear them, so I thought I'd pop it on today. And so I've got a bit to show you, and I have to say I think this episode, the theme is all about following your joy. So I'm definitely a process knitter. I love having lots of whips because I love the process of knitting. I like to have different things to knit on, and I've talked about this before, but I think in the last 2 weeks I do have, you know, a basket of whips sitting there, but I did feel a strong need to kind of follow where my joy was taking me. And so if you need that sort of encouragement and the permission to, you know, cast on something that's going to bring you a lot of joy, even though you've got your whip staring at you, this is your permission. I encourage it. So follow your joy, be mindful in what you're making. Like, are you enjoying the process? Are you enjoying what you're doing? So that's kind of the theme here, I think. So let's jump into it. I have 3 finished objects, and it's a bit of a cheat because the first one is a jumper, but I didn't knit the whole thing. So this is, oh, that colour's coming up well, that's good. This is the Turtle Dove by Espace Tricot, which is a free pattern. So if you're looking for some really good free patterns, Espace Tricot has really great patterns. And this is a jumper for my mum, and my mum actually started knitting it. So it's a top-down raglan, very sort of oversized, boxy. It's got quite low armhole, so it's a bit of a bat wing situation. It's got a bit of a funnel neck as well, and it's knit up in Rowan brushed fleece from Morris & Sons in Melbourne in the colourway Hush, which I think is 270. And my mum got the yarn for birthday or Christmas or something. We got her a voucher, she picked out the yarn and she started knitting. She had never knit a top down in the round kind of modern knitting pattern before, so this was all a bit new to her, but she did really well. She knit, like, cast on, knit the neck, knit the raglan, split for sleeves, and then kind of came to a bit of a halt and sort of sat in her living room for quite a few months. And she said to me, would you mind finishing it for me? I said, of course, because it's a really big gauge. The yarn is really, it's if it's not bulky, it's certainly Aran in terms of its weight. So it was really quick. So I finished off the body, which is there. Now it doesn't fit me, it fits her. So there's no point me trying it on because it will look a bit silly, but And I finished off, I picked up and finished both sleeves for her as well. And then I popped in a nice little tag. It just says handmade, so she can tell which is the back, because it does have short rows in it. So yeah, so that's all finished. So now I can give that to my mum. She can be cozy in these last couple of weeks of winter, and she can have that for next year when it gets really cold, because it's a really warm, squishy, lovely jumper. So the yarn was quite nice to work with. I'm not sure that I would pick it out to work with it again, because it is a bit thick and thin, and that's the nature of the yarn. It wasn't particularly sort of smooth in terms of going quickly, but it is certainly a very nice finished project. So she knit the size large, and I just went with that size. I adjusted the sleeve length to fit her. She's quite short, so just needed a bit of adjustment. And we used the suggested needles, so when she brought it over, she brought the needles that she was using, and I just used those as well. So I tried to match her gauge as much as possible. And that's it for the turtle dove. So I mean, it seemed like a really good project, nice and quick, and yeah, I would recommend it as a starting pattern. The second finished object is a pair of socks, and it's my new pattern that will be coming out in a couple of weeks, and this is the Brisbane Socks. So absolutely gorgeous yarn, love the colours. That's it there. So you'll see it has a Fleagle heel, and it has some really lovely chevron patterning. Let me put it this way so that you can see. So it's got this lovely chevron pattern all the way down the front of the sock, all the way down to the toe, and on the back of the leg it's got a little mini chevron that stops just as you go into the heel. There we go. So I finished these as part of the test knit, which is currently going on for this pair of socks. So this is the Brisbane Socks. Now I was born in Brisbane, and so it sort of holds a bit of a special place in my heart. And Brisbane is more north, much more north than Melbourne, and can be quite warm. So it's a fingering weight sock, nice and light. It's got some air holes for breathing, and it's nice and bright, so it really reflects you know, Brisbane and Queensland in terms of its bright culture and sunny weather, which is often the case. So the yarn, what yarn did I use? So this self-striping is by an Australian indie dyer, Yarns with Alex. So I met Alex at the Bendigo Sheep Show a couple of weeks ago, and I said hello, and I said to her that I was designing my new pattern in her yarn. She was very excited. So this is it. This is the self-striping, and it's her Colour Play sock set in Pink Blossom number 3. That's the colourway. And then the heels, the cuffs, and not the heels, the cuff and the toe are actually in a different, I really liked the sort of variegated nature of this particular mini, which I grabbed from a different set. And this is Owl of Athena, and it is in the colourway Flamingo Baby. So both of them fingering weight, and I just thought they looked really, really sweet together. So that's the Brisbane Socks. So as you can see, I did the version with the Fleagle heel, but my patterns always have options. I did 1x1 rib on the cuff, but it comes with different options. Go into the chevron patterning, which is really, really quick and easy. It's a 2-row repeat, and you get into a bit of a rhythm, and it becomes quite addictive because you just think, oh, just one more repeat, just one more repeat. And before you know it, the socks are done. But it also comes with an option for afterthought heel and heel flap and gusset as well. So that's the Brisbane Socks. So they will be released in a couple of weeks, and you'll be able to knit them up soon. Everybody in the test knit is doing absolutely beautifully, and I love everyone's yarn choices. So there's lots of variegated, there's lots of tonal, there's lots of self-striping versions being knit up, and they all look really, really great. So yeah, so that's my second finished object. And my third finished object, I wasn't expecting to finish this, but as is always the case, crochet is super quick and it's done before you know it. So this is the Juniper Cowl by Tony Lipsy. And this was one of my works in progress, and I have now finished it. And it's all done. So I will attempt to put this on. I think I'm actually going to give this as a gift to someone, and when I tried it on the other day it actually got caught on my little earring here. So let's try and get it on without getting it stuck to me. There we go. Doesn't really go well with the colour of my jumper, but that's okay. So this cowl, super fun to make, super quick and easy, and I learned a couple of new things. So the yarn is it was a Lovely Little Yarns Christmas box, Christmas morning box, which was a set of 8 mini skeins and 1 full skein, all in very sort of unicorny, sort of bright colours. It wasn't really a fade, but I sort of put them together so that the colours melded into each other. And I just used the 8 minis, and then the final colour here is actually that was the main colour. It was a really, really pretty colour, and I only used about 30 grams of that, so I've got enough left for a pair of socks, I reckon. So Lovely Little Yarns unfortunately isn't dyeing anymore, so you can't get their yarn, but it is absolutely beautiful, and you might be able to pick some up on a D-stash somewhere, maybe, if you're lucky. So I used, I started chained with a 5mm hook just to make sure that my chain wasn't too tight and it can get around my head. But the rest of the cowl is done on a 4mm hook. And the majority of it, the body of it, is done in, it's a puff stitch, which you can see there. It's kind of, all the stitches are quite puffy and squishy. It just means it's quite squishy and drapey and lovely, which is really nice for crochet. And then the bind off was super fun. Let me take it off. So the puff stitch, I think I'd done the puff stitch before, but it was good practice to do it for this whole thing. But then the bind off, both on the bottom, which you'll see there, and also across the top, it's the same sort of applied bind off, was actually crab stitch, which I had never done before, and it's crocheting backwards. I'm sure all you crocheters are like, it's easy, but I looked up a video, you're right, it is very easy. And so yeah, I learned a new stitch. That was heaps of fun. It looks really pretty. I really like it as a border, and I think it's just a really lovely, pretty, bright cowl. So I think that one is going to go into my gift pile for someone. We won't say who because they potentially watch. But yeah, it was a really fun crochet project, and I would highly recommend it. And that one, so that one do you say cast on for crochet? I started it on the 5th of June and I finished it on the 8th of August. So it was pretty quick because I didn't work on it all that much really. But yeah, so they're my 3 finished objects. So, works in progress. Okay, I have a few things here to show you. The first is in this bag from Crystal Cat Stitchery. There's the label. And that's Liz from Crystal Cat Stitchery. I think I have 3 of her bags on the go at the moment. So this is my Starflake by Stephen West. So it's a shawl. It's one of the mystery knit-alongs from quite a few years ago, and I'm knitting this up in a couple of yarns. One is 3 Cats yarn, which is this one here, and this is in the colour Graffiti, so you can see all the lovely speckles, and that's the label there, 3 Cats yarn. In the colour Graffiti. And then the other yarn is this incredibly bright pink. It looks like it's glowing, and it really is glowing. It's so bright. There. And this is Woollen Works, and it's in the colour Barbie. And so, where did I get up to last time? This is, okay, here we go. So, I think, where's my little, there it is. So, I've got my little stitch marker there. So that's where I was up to last time. So I finished off the stockinette and reverse stockinette stripes, which were this section, and I have started the brioche section. So this shawl has a very large brioche section, but that's okay. We're just going slowly and mindfully through the process. But isn't it fun in those colors? It's so fun. And the brioche, I haven't messed up yet, which is good. But it does have, so you'll see in the dips, it has decreases, and then in the little heel bit, it has increases in the brioche. So that's been interesting to work out how to do brioche left leaning, right leaning decreases, and then the increases are fairly straightforward. But it just means that it's not very mindless for, you know, if there's a lot going on or there's watching a particularly interesting movie. This is not the project. I do need to, every few rows is a nice sort of plain brioche row, but some of the rows are, you just really need to pay attention and work out what you're doing. But I am ticking along. It's going really, really nicely. I think I'm doing this, as I've mentioned, as a bit of an informal knit along with a few people, and I'm so happy and pleased because quite a few more people seem to have joined in and cast on the Starflake, and I think it's one of those patterns that a lot of people have in their queue but haven't got around to it, or maybe are a bit put off by the brioche. So as an option in the pattern, instead of brioche, this section you can actually do it as garter. And one of my friends, Sian, the obsessive maker on YouTube and on Instagram, Sian's doing an absolutely beautiful version, very scrappy, with all pinks and purples and things, and her version has some mohair in it, and she's doing the garter option here, and so she's flying through, which is fabulous, and hers is really, really pretty, so go and check hers out. But I'm also knitting it along with Lisa from 72 Stitches or Knit All the Yarn podcast, as well as Alex from Coop Stitches, and now a bunch of other people have also cast on, including Marina, who's Handmade Koala on Instagram. So yeah, go and check out. There's a bit of a group of us now knitting through this, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm definitely not flying through it because of the techniques required, but it's really fun to learn new things, to do some knitting that's a bit more complicated, and to feel that sense of accomplishment. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that. So it's on 3.75mm needles, which I think is as per the pattern. And I cast that on the 10th of July. So I'm going okay. Going okay. I think I'll be on the brioche section for quite a while, so hopefully I have good progress next time. But we'll see how quickly I can get through it. So, work in progress. Whip number 2 is in a bag I made, which is there. The pattern for this, if you want to sew it yourself like I did, is down below. You can just find the pattern on Etsy. This is my sweater by November Knits on, I think she's November Knits on Instagram. And this is an oversized raglan sweater that is coming along very, very nicely. And it has a really deep, I love the design of this, it has a really, really deep split hem. So the split hem goes almost up, all the way up to the armpits, which is just a really fun design. I think it's going to look really nice. So here's where I was last time, that little marker there, and I have now knit all the way down, and I've been doing, you can see the raglan, so that same raglan pattern is on the 4 raglan points there. And I haven't split for sleeves yet. I've still got a few repeats to go, but I think I've only got maybe 6 repeats left. And so the stitch count at the moment is pretty big, as it gets up there as you get to the end of before you split for sleeves. But it's a lot of fun, this one, and I'm really enjoying just the process. The yarn is absolutely beautiful, and the fabric that it's making, you can see the halo there. It's really, really lovely, and it's lovely. And even though it's more on the rustic side like this, it's softer than Finull, and the fabric just feels really lovely. It's gonna block out really, really nicely, I think. So the yarn that I have is Isager Jensen yarn, and it's just 100% wool, and that's in the 11S colorway. So I think it's dyed on a darker base, so it gives it that real depth and heathering look to it, which is really good. The silk mohair is my favorite silk mohair, and that is the Isager Silk Mohair. So it's, oh, hang on, there we go. Isager Silk Mohair. Yep, and this is in the color 11, and it's just a beautiful blue, light blue color. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else. It's on 5mm needles, which is as per the pattern, and I've knitted it according to the pattern, done the short rows. It's just really enjoyable. I really, really recommend it. I cast it on the 7th of July. So I'm going pretty well, getting through it. This is one of the main things that I'm working on, because at the moment, you know, it's pretty easy to just whip around and do the raglan increases. So yeah, going well on that one. Get all the yarn back in the bag. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, my third work in progress, is a new cast on. So I bought all that yarn at Bendigo, and I was really itching to cast something on with one of the new treasures that I bought at Bendigo. And so I pulled out my new bag from Crystal Cat Stitchery. It has all the little dogs on it, so very, very cute. Love this bag. And this, I got this yarn from Bendigo, which you might remember. So this is from Adagio Mills, and it's their Alpaca 4-ply in the colour Grey Mist. So that's that one. And I started the Semplice shawl by Vera Marku. So Vera is a great Australian designer, and she's one of the women that I stayed with in Bendigo in the share house. And it was lovely meeting Vera and chatting to her and getting to know her. And I had checked out some of her patterns, and this one jumped out at me when I found this yarn, because this is the yarn that it was actually designed in. So I bought 2 skeins and I've cast it on, and it's just a really fun, simple shawl pattern that uses stockinette and reverse stockinette to sort of create some quite striking patterns. So you'll see there that it starts with a garter tab down the bottom, and then if I sort of stretch that out, you can see it's going to be sort of triangular shaped. And yeah, you can see the fun thing about this shawl is the different stockinette and reverse stockinette sections playing against each other and creating a really simple but effective pattern. And this is my stitch marker from Mavis Handmade, so Megan. So I got that at Bendigo as well. I'll move that up actually so we know where I got to and showed you. So this one, the yarn is lovely and soft, really nice to work with. It is a bit thick and thin, which it's a 2-ply and it's fairly loosely plied. So that's the nature of the yarn. It's really, really lovely, and it's going to block out beautifully, but it just means some of the knits and purl rows are, you can see they're just, some are looser than others, but I think that will block out really nicely. But yeah, it's very simple. I'm enjoying it a lot. And yeah, we'll see how we get through it. So this is something I often pick up if I've done a few rows of brioche and I'm feeling a bit over all the concentrating. I'll pull this out because it's nice and simple. So yeah, so what else? I cast that on the 30th of July, so I've done quite a bit for only a week or so. It's on a 3.25mm needle, and Semplice is Italian for simple, so it's a nice simple shawl, and it'll use up the 2 balls that I have, so 200 grams of that yarn. And yeah, it's just a nice rhythmic sort of knit, so I'm really enjoying that. So hopefully get through that, and I think that colour is going to be really wearable. It's going to go with a lot of things as well. Now this, my 4th work in progress, was a bit of a random FOMO cast on, but sometimes we get inspired and just follow the joy. As I said, follow the things that you really want to cast on and that you want to do. So this is also in a Crystal Cat Stitchery bag, the bright pink corduroy one, and this is more of a sock size or a 2 skein size. So I've got in here the leftovers from my Brisbane Socks. So I've got the Yarns with Alex self-striping colorway that I use for my Brisbane Socks. I've got the leftover Owl of Athena yarn that I used, and I have the mini that came with the Yarns with Alex sock set, which is more of a really light pink. And this is actually a mystery knit along. So if you are doing, this is the Mystery Grimblewood knit along by Sarah Shearer, or Imagine Landscapes. So this is a gnome knit along, and it's a free knit along. So the pattern is free. It's to promote Sarah's new book that's coming out, new gnome knitting pattern book. And this gnome is Natty the Unexpected Gnome. And so the pattern is free. You can hop over to her page and it will send you off to where you grab the pattern. And so if you're doing it and you haven't knit up the first clue yet, look away. But I cast on and finished the new clue the first clue super quickly because it is just a little hat. And that's it there. And so it's in that nice pink yarn. It's just a little, very small. And so yeah, super quick to knit up. So I suspect it's just going to be one of those quick, fun little projects that each week we get a clue, you do that knitting, it only takes a couple of hours and then you can move on to your other whips. But I'll end up with a very cute, sweet pink gnome. So the first clue I think came out on the 7th of August. So I did that knitting on the 8th of August. It uses a 2.25 and a 2.5mm needle. I think that's it. So yeah, if you want a bit of gnome knitting fun, I always find it fun to knit along with the gnome knit-alongs because you sort of tend to do it. Otherwise it can be one of those things that's not really a priority, but they are really fun to have. So yes, that's my little fun project at the moment. And my last work in progress that I want to show you is also a new cast on or a new project, because I finished off the Juniper Cowl, so I didn't have a crochet project on the hook, and I just really wanted to keep crocheting. I really was enjoying that project, had enjoyed that project, and I really wanted to get something else on the hooks so that I could just keep up with that particular skill and craft. And so what I did was pulled out a whole bunch of scraps that I have, and I was inspired by my friend Sian, the obsessive maker, who recently had finished an Agnes sweater vest. So that's a free pattern on Ravelry by Bethany Lynn, and it's on her blog page, so you click the link and it goes off to her blog page, and it's more of a recipe and kind of instructions. So you really you probably need to kind of know what you're doing, but I've gathered together a few, you know, my preferred way of doing granny squares, and I'm just sort of following along her instructions. So I'm making a vest, and it's a crochet vest, but it'll have granny squares, and then you pick up and knit the neck and armholes and the bottom. So I gathered together a basket of a whole bunch of scraps of fingering weight, DK and mohair, all in a very particular colour palette. So I think Sian's vest was sort of blues and greens in the granny squares, and I really liked the look of it. It looked really nice with a very neutral colour for the outside of each square, and then for the bands. And so I grabbed a bit of a pink colour palette. So these yarns are leftovers that I had from one of my Stephen West Mystery Knit Along shawls. They're Blackwattle yarns, merino singles, and then I've got some leftover similar base merino singles from Skein in Australia, Indie Dyer in Australia, and I've got a few sort of bits of mohair. This one's Colagirl Collective. I've got some Rowan Kid Silk Haze, just to sort of hold them together and make a bunch of granny squares that I will then join together and turn into a fabulous vest. And so my main colour that will go around the outside of each square, I'm holding it with a bare silk mohair, so it's just undyed, and it's a DK weight yarn from Lovely Little Yarns, and it's called Sprinkles on Top. So it's just a really, really nice cream undyed base with sort of fluoro speckles all the way through, and it's really, really lovely. And so using a 4.5 millimeter hook, clover hook is my preferred, I have started making granny squares. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, I've got 5 so far. So I have just been making granny squares with different versions of that colour palette. So there's the first one. There's the second one. There's the third one. There's the fourth one. There's the fifth one. So yeah, so I've made 5 altogether, 5 granny squares. I'm not sure how many I have to make altogether. I think it's 20 something maybe. But yeah, so that'll be really fun, and I'll make those into a vest. So that was really all in terms of the knitting that I wanted to show you. My next cast on is going to be part of a knit along that is running by Susanna Kartinen, or Sana & Co, and Louie and Lola, Karina from Louie and Lola, and Sarah from Bombed Yarns. So they're running an Alma Cowl. So I'm going to be knitting the Alma cardigan. So this was a pattern, well, a kit that I bought at Bendigo. And just as a reminder, this is my colour palette, so very similar to my vest. So that's going to be my colour palette for the Alma cardigan, and that's going to be my next cast on. That knit along starts on the 15th of August, I think. So if you want to join in, yeah, grab some yarn, grab the pattern and join in. It looks like a lot of fun. It'll be a nice colourwork garment for me, and steeking, which I'm a little bit terrified about, but it will be fine. I did have a couple of purchases just in the last week. I did do a bit of damage at Bendigo, so they were just things that I thought, oh, I kind of need that. And one was I got some cables from Sunspun for my Chiagu interchangeables, because working on my urn sweater, I realized I was having to join some smaller cables together, so I just got a couple of additional cables. And then I also picked up a book, which from this yarn shop, which is an online yarn shop in Victoria. And I got this book, which I thought looked like a really good resource for me in terms of designing patterns and getting into knitwear design. So I've picked up this book and I've started to work my way through it, and it looks really interesting. So yeah, so those were just a couple of things that I picked up. And other than that, that's all I've got. So I hope you're having a really good weekend, and you've got a good week ahead of you, and you get lots of making done. And I really loved catching up with you. So hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed my video and you want to see more of them, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.